Hello, my name is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing this recording on November 29th. Thank you for joining. I greatly appreciate it. Please subscribe to all my channels. I have channels on YouTube, Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble, Patreon, Substack, TikTok, X, GETTR, many ways to follow my work. I also do live streams on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. All these videos are for free. Please help support the work by sharing the links, asking your social media to follow me, and you can also support by being a paid member to my Patreon or Substack channel. You can also donate on my website, the-studio-reykjavik.com. I greatly appreciate the help that you provide to support the channel. I have great products. I have supplements and ebooks and also course material on immunology and pulmonology to help support the channel. So please go to my store and take a look at some of the great products that I offer. I have omega-3. Omega-3 helps with your cardiovascular health. It brings down inflammation and helps with your lipid profile. Therefore, it's reducing plaque formation. Digestive enzyme complex helps to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids, reduces the stress on your pancreas. This is super important. It also has bromelain to break up clots, and the proteolytic enzymes in here also helps to break up glycoproteins, which is super important during the winter season. Olive leaf extract boosts up that immune system and helps with your cardiovascular system, brings down inflammation and helps your lipid profile. And clarity factor. Clarity factor gets rid of that brain fog, helps you.
I found some web results. I can show them if you ask again from your iPhone.
It helps for you to concentrate on your tasks, gets rid of that brain fog, and over time improves that neuroplasticity so you're thinking faster and have better memory. This is super important as a neurostack. Take it every day, drink it with filtered water. All right, with that said, let's listen into Al Jazeera talking about Trump and his warning to Venezuela.
There's some breaking news out of the US now, where President Donald Trump has just announced the closure of the airspace above Venezuela. My friend Rosalind Jordan joining us from Washington, D.C. He's announced this in a Truth Social post. Rosalind, tell us what he said and what all this means. Essentially, the post from the U.S. President Donald Trump says that this is a warning to airlines, to pilots, I assume both commercial and general aviation, drug dealers and human traffickers, that the U.S. is declaring the airspace over Venezuela. Of course, the U.S. is not in control of Venezuela, but the U.S. is considering the airspace closed until further notice. It does not say exactly how the U.S. is going to enforce this. What we have seen, but perhaps most famously in the case of the closure of the airspace over Iraq in the from the 1980s on until the wars that began in 2003, was that the U.S. military was charged with patrolling the airspace around the Iraqi borders in order to prevent any air traffic from crossing or going in and out of that country. We do not know if that is going to be the case here with the United States. It had been reported on Friday by the New York Times that late in the week of November 21st, a little more than a week ago, the U.S. president apparently had an unreported phone call with Nicolas Maduro, the Venezuelan president, where it seemed, according to those who were sourcing the story, the two men were talking about perhaps having a face-to-face meeting here in the United States, and were perhaps discussing ways to try to reduce tensions between the two countries. The U.S., as our viewers know, has been very angry with Venezuela. It blames Venezuela not just for fueling what the U.S. calls an unprecedented migration crisis, but also by fueling the fentanyl addiction crisis here in the United States by efforting the trafficking of that illegal substance into the U.S. territory and resulting in the addiction and deaths of hundreds of thousands of Americans. The U.S. has also long been very unhappy with Nicolas Maduro being the president of Venezuela. The Biden administration had considered his reelection in 2024 to be illegal. The Trump administration has continued that posture and has strongly signaled that it would like to see Maduro removed from power.
So, Rosalind, what do we think this all means? I mean, and especially considering that over the past few weeks, there's been an increase, I would say, in the number of military personnel in the region.
Well, it's probably not a good sign for the Venezuelan government. If I were to speculate, it is worth also pointing out that on Thursday and Friday, the U.S. Defense Secretary, or Secretary of War, as he likes to call himself, Pete Hegseth, was on board the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the aircraft carrier that has been deployed to the Caribbean Sea in international waters, but not far from Venezuela. Part of that military show of force to perhaps intimidate the Venezuelan government from carrying out what the U.S. says are illegal criminal narcotics activities. But this is certainly part of that context. Does that mean that military action carried out by the United States is imminent? We can't say that, but certainly it's one more piece of circumstantial evidence that the U.S. is trying to put very overt, very blatant pressure on the Venezuelan government and not just use diplomatic language to try to change course in that country.
What kind of debate has all this sparked in the U.S.? Because, again, over the past few weeks, we know that the U.S. military has killed more than 80 people in boat strikes as part of what Donald Trump and his administration are describing as the anti-drug trafficking campaign.
Well, there hasn't been much in the way of public uproar, but there's been a lot of uproar on Capitol Hill. Congressional Democrats and a few Republicans are very disturbed by this campaign on trying to deal with drug trafficking that traditionally have been carried out as a law enforcement action, with the U.S. Coast Guard basically interdicting these vessels allegedly carrying narcotics, and then arranging for the detention and then transfer to U.S. officials for prosecution, as opposed to carrying out these strikes without notice, without any legal authority on these vessels. And in recent days, you've seen more people, especially on Capitol Hill, but also in the legal community, raising very serious questions about whether the U.S. is carrying out war crimes by basically targeting people without any due diligence, and basically acting as judge and jury rather than going through the long-established, decades-long process of arresting and then prosecuting people for criminal behavior.
Rosalind, stand by for just a moment, because as you were saying, the U.S. has been rapidly increasing its military presence in the Caribbean. Since August, more than 10,000 American soldiers and fighter jets have been deployed near Venezuela. This is the largest deployment of U.S. forces in the region in decades. The U.S. Navy's largest aircraft carrier, the Gerald R. Ford, has arrived in the Southern Caribbean, and this is the largest ship of its kind in the world, with its own air wing of more than 75 fighter jets, helicopters, and early warning aircraft. And a Navy destroyer carrying guided missiles, helicopters, and Marines has also arrived in Trinidad and Tobago near Venezuela's coast. Venezuela has put its armed forces on high alert, deploying thousands of troops and a reported 5,000 Russian-made missiles across the country to counter the buildup. And now, what we hear in the past 30 minutes or so is the U.S. President Donald Trump announcing the closure of the airspace above Venezuela. Rosalind, was this expected at all? And do we know why now?
It was not expected. We don't know why. We are trying to reach out to sources across the U.S. government to find out exactly what is happening. I should note that after he made that post about the U.S.'s closure of Venezuelan airspace, he has now posted about a completely unrelated topic, the ongoing issue of tariffs on goods being imported and sold into the United States. So we don't know if this is actual military action that is about to happen, or whether this is one of the statements that the president is prone to make, as he very actively and very publicly carries out his foreign policy. This is not a government that does things in quiet negotiations in many summits in world capitals. This is a man who very much says what he believes ought to happen, and he goes right to the U.S. public and to the global public through his social media channel.
Okay, Rosalind, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for that reporting from Washington, D.C. We'll speak to Al Jazeera's Latin America editor, Lucia Newman. Lucia, you're joining us from Santiago in Chile on the telephone. Can you tell us if you've seen any official reaction, first of all, from the Venezuelan government to this development?
Well, we had heard just yesterday from President Maduro saying that the United States was increasing its, what he called excuses and lies to try to justify an intervention in Venezuela. And that was before this announcement was made by President Trump. But I can say that the Trump administration has been systematically increasing the pressure on the Maduro government, while at the same time we have been hearing or reading, I should say, about attempts by President Trump to have a phone conversation with Nicolás Maduro. This has not been confirmed, but it is being widely reported that this conversation did take place in order to have some kind of a face-to-face meeting. Again, this has not been confirmed, but so he's sort of going hot and cold. But what clearly this very week on Monday, he declared the so-called Cartel of the Soles, a narco-terrorist organization, which he says is led by Nicolás Maduro. And then the White House said that the anti-drug offensive that we have been seeing in the Caribbean, that this anti-drug offensive will begin on land. So that is certainly sending the message that there could be some kind of a military action within Venezuela itself.
So how much of an escalation is this, Lucia?
Sorry?
How much of an escalation? How much of an escalation
Well,
is this?
it is an escalation on of words and on paper, but we haven't seen an actual escalation that he would actually go so far. Now I'm speaking about the Pentagon and the administration, whether they would actually attack Venezuela, which is the fear that is being raised, obviously, from everyone in the region. When you tell airlines not to go to Venezuela, when you say that the airspace is now being closed, you're sending a very, very aggressive message. Whether this will play out is another matter altogether. But this has been going on now for a long, long time, and it's unclear whether the administration is willing to actually go into Venezuela or not. But it is supposed to put very, very strong pressure on Maduro, perhaps, and this is the speculation, perhaps to sit down and negotiate his withdrawal from power.
And up until this point, any sign that this pressure that the U.S. government has been trying to put on Venezuela has worked?
None whatsoever, none that we can certainly measure. They've said that they will not cave in to this kind of pressure. They've reached out to their closest allies, that is Russia and China, for help, but both have been rather lukewarm and certainly have not come out publicly to say that they would stand up and by Venezuela's side, especially militarily, if there were to be increased military action around and inside of Venezuela.
Has Venezuela taken any sort of preparatory action in case this were to escalate? We know that the U.S. has amassed more than a dozen warships and thousands of troops in the region. They're branding their operation as an Operation Southern Spear. That's what they're calling it. What has Venezuela done to prepare?
Venezuela has, from the very beginning, when this was just a few U.S. boats and troops around the area shooting and destroying boats that were allegedly carrying drugs in the area, it began to mobilize its army. It began to mobilize ordinary people, teaching them how to be prepared for an invasion, that sort of thing, which we have seen in Venezuela over the decades. This is not new. And the real question is Venezuela really in a position to defend itself, were there to be military action from the United States? I'm sure they would resist. But the strategy, according to people who are in the know, both there and abroad, is that This is to tell the Venezuelan military that they should now withdraw their support for Maduro and that there will be no sanctions taken against them if they do that. This is what we have been hearing now for at least a month. This is for them to desert, basically, Nicolas Maduro and the upper echelons of the military forces of Venezuela so that there will be regime change. That seems to be really the end game.
Okay, thank you. Lucia, we'll let you go for now. Thank you so much for that reporting from Santiago in Chile.
About 85% stopped by sea. You probably noticed that people aren't wanting to be delivering by sea, and we'll be starting to stop them by land also.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. We're going to be going to Times News about Venezuela and the U.S. Navy. Get the great supplements that I offer on my website. Get the lignans. Lignans will help your immune system and your endocrine system, bring down inflammation and soak up free radicals. Super important to slow down the aging process and boost up that immune system. Ashwagandha root helps to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels, helps with your cardiovascular system and your immune system. And turmeric brings down inflammation and soaks up free radicals. Super important for your immune system and cardiovascular system. And when you bring down inflammation regularly, you're also helping with your brain function because you're protecting your neurons and the integrity of the myelin sheath. Stack these together to get the max benefits. You can stack the turmeric, the lignans, and the ashwagandha together every day to boost up that immune system, help with your cardiovascular system, because you're bringing down inflammation at the vascular level, and also your brain function, because you're bringing down inflammation at the brain level. Now, take the turmeric, the lignans, and the ashwagandha together, and you repeat that on a regular basis, you're going to slow down the aging process. This is one of the key pillars to my anti-aging protocol. This works very well, especially during the winter season. So it's important to boost up that immune system and slow down the aging process. And you'll also notice that when you work out, you are recovering much quicker after your workout, especially if you're old. Another great supplement to take, and you can stack it with what I just mentioned, or take it separately, the heirloom barley. Heirloom barley will help to detoxify your body, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals through superoxide dismutase. This is a month's supply. Take it every day. And when you do that, you're helping your immune system, your cardiovascular system, even joint health, and brain function. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the heirloom barley, slow down the aging process. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. You spend $100 or more, you get a free gift until supplies last. All right, let's listen in to Times News. This is from Annie Jacobson. I believe she's the one that wrote about the nuclear war book that she released last year, I think it was.
Time after a nuclear war, all present-day knowledge will be gone, including the knowledge that the enemy was not North Korea, Russia, America, China, Iran, or anyone else vilified as a nation or a group.
That's Annie Jacobson, a journalist and the author of a fascinating but troubling book, Nuclear War: A Scenario.
It was the nuclear weapons that were the enemy of all of us, all along.
And that's from the final pages of Annie's book. And it's a book many of you have written to us about, in fact, not least because nuclear destruction has very much been thrust back into the spotlight, with Presidents Putin and Trump trading threats about restarting nuclear testing and whether they'll even renew the START disarmament treaty, which is about to expire. Annie's book is a stark reminder of just how real the threat of nuclear war remains. She walks us step by step through what would happen if a single intercontinental ballistic missile carrying a nuclear warhead were launched at the United States. and he took you through what this scenario and the fallout afterwards would look like in some terrifying detail. Welcome to The General and the Journalist. I'm Tom, and here's my conversation with Annie. So Annie, thank you so much for joining.
Black Friday is the best time to save big on top brands. Upgrade your sleep at Raymore Flanagan.
So Annie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So look, a bit about your book first, Nuclear War, a Scenario. It's been a huge hit from the moment it was published in 2024. It's been nominated for literary prizes left, right and centre. Donald Trump says he's read it, and even the Pope has been presented with a copy of it. It's a book of fact, it's not a fiction, and it paints what I think is fair to say is an extremely grim picture of how, over the course of 72 minutes only, the world is very largely annihilated. We'll talk about exactly how this scenario plays out, your thoughts on what we need to do to stop it. But first, Annie, tell me about the genesis of the book. It's your seventh you've written. Why did you choose it?
Unfortunately, because I haven't seen this video, they mistitled this. I thought this was going to be about Venezuela. So I think on their end, they made
In the past 43 days, Democrats in
they made an error here. So let's switch over to MS Now. I'll try to find the video from them.
Intensifying retribution campaign against the list of targets that continues to grow. Listen to this, y'all. Reuters reports that at least 470 targets, 470, have faced retaliation under the president's leadership. While some of those efforts have been derailed, like the dismissal of criminal charges against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James, that's not stopping the president from going on the warpath to punish his perceived political enemies. This week, Trump's DOJ and FBI began investigating the 6 Democratic lawmakers he accused of, quote, seditious behavior after they urged military personnel to refuse illegal orders. The Pentagon is also investigating whether Senator Mark Kelly, a former Navy pilot, breached military law by participating in the lawmakers' message to service members. Despite the investigation against him, Senator Kelly is making it clear he's not backing down. Here's what he told Jimmy Kimmel this week.
He's trying to get some fear out there. And fear can be contagious. But what also can be contagious is courage and patriotism. Every one of us has First Amendment speech rights. And I think the president is infringing on those. And he's sending a pretty strong message. You do not want to cross him, and your loyalty should be to him. It should not.
Where was his stance on freedom of speech during the COVID era? Nowhere.
It should always be to the Constitution.
Meanwhile, Trump is once again going after his predecessor, announcing on social media that he's canceling all executive orders signed by Joe Biden using an auto pen. Among other things, Trump could potentially try to reverse pardons issued by President Biden, but legal experts point out there is no mechanism to undo clemency after it is granted. Joining us now, conservative lawyer George Conway. He's also president of Society for the Rule of Law and Political Magazine senior writer. Entrepreneur. He's also a former federal prosecutor. I want to start where I ended, which is President Trump saying that he's going every executive order and apparently pardon anything signed with the auto pen by Joe Biden. He's declaring gone. Executive orders are one thing, right? This is why folks say executive orders are not the way you want to govern because they can go away every time there's a new president in office. But please remind the people there is no legal avenue to get rid of pardons in this country.
There is no legal avenue to get rid of pardon. By the way, the whole thing is sort of bizarre. There's no legal requirement that the pardons even be signed.
If it's an illegal pardon, I think that maybe the Supreme Court might take a look at this. If the process isn't proper, then how How is the pardon legitimate?
By the president. So whether there's an auto pen or not is like beside the point. That's apparently consuming Trump's mind for much of his presidency, because he did the whole thing where he put the auto pen on the White House wall and everything. But no, this is just appears to be sort of more nonsense.
But if we saw Trump decide, or the Justice Department decide to prosecute someone who Joe Biden had pardoned, what would be the backstop there?
They would assert.
Why aren't they talking about Venezuela?
The defense in the proceeding.
And they would really quickly, I want to read though the pardon clause in the Constitution, Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1. The president shall have power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in cases of impeachment. That's all it says. It doesn't say it has to be signed, like you said. It doesn't say that anything else has to. And then the president say, "I grant you a pardon to go free, Ph.D."
Not only that. I mean, it doesn't have to be signed, but there is well-established Justice Department legal advice that says that basically the president can sign things however he wants. If you want to use a thumbprint, he can use a thumbprint. If he wants to use someone else to sign for him, he can do that. If he wants to use a machine or a stamp, he can do that. And there's nothing illegal about those pardons. And they will be successfully invoked by defendants in court. Now, executive orders are a different thing because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how they were signed. Trump can just undo executive orders. He can just say, "I'm undoing all Sleepy Joe's executive orders, regardless of whether they signed by an auto pen." And so be it. That's what he's entitled to do that.
Well, to your point, George, factcheck.org put something out. This is March of.
Better question is, why are they supporting the pardon of Fauci? Why are they supporting some of the pardons of Biden? Why?
Trump's baseless auto pen claims about Biden's pardons. Legal experts say there is nothing to President Donald Trump's claim that several of former President Joe Biden's pardons are void because they were signed via auto pen. White House lawyers during the George W. Bush administration said the use of an auto pen is perfectly legal, and constitutional scholars say that nothing in the Constitution even requires pardons to be signed anyway, as has been brought up 3 times at this table.
Go ahead now. One other thing. I mean, there's only one person who's ever admitted live on camera that he did not know who the person was who he pardoned.
Oh, yeah, who was that?
That was Donald Trump. Right? Guardian Chang Penjel, head of Binance, who was pardoned, I don't remember, a couple months ago.
Right.
He was asked about it. He said he didn't know who that was. That to me is way more significant. It's either true that he doesn't know who it was and some staff member put him up to it, or he's lying.
And both are terrible.
Correct.
That's just me.
Absolutely. It's like we've seen this movie before. Either he's telling the truth, which is awful, or he's lying.
Which is
an ongoing theme here.
Yeah.
Can we get to the Venezuela of it all? The Washington Post, we went through this article earlier, but just to remind our viewers, has this very damning article about the Defense Department's orders to kill 2 people who were on a boat. People who were on a boat off of Venezuelan waters, off of the Venezuelan coast, who were not killed in an initial drone strike. It's almost like Mark Kelly and the rest of those Democratic senators actually might have known what they were talking about, or potentially already knew about this report coming out. But there are former military lawyers, people who have actually advised special operations forces in the past, who believe that this order amounts to a war crime, which is that they called it in order to show no quarter.
It actually isn't a war crime because there is no war. It's worse than a war crime because, first of all, the bombings in the first place were illegal because there is no war.
Right.
And these were not combatants. But even if these
we know who they are. We still to this day do not know.
Okay, they weren't, they weren't naval. It wasn't a naval vessel. It wasn't. There is no war between us and Venezuela. And these people were not sailors or soldiers fighting with weapons against us. So that The law of war doesn't, you didn't even get to the law of war. But even if it were, even if these guys were a naval ship armed to the teeth, and the ship was blown up, and these guys were in the water, firing against them would be an act, would be a violation of the laws of war. No matter how you look at this, you can apply civilian law, military law, the Uniform Court of Military Justice, international law, foreign law, domestic law, federal law, state law. No matter what legal regime you apply to the second strike, it's murder. Period. It's not even. There's not even an argument. That's how outrageous this is.
George, you named a lot of laws there. Just
no matter what the legal framework is, it's murder.
Right. And so I want to switch gears just a tiny bit because the president of the United States is awake.
So wait, so they're defending Venezuela? I mean, this is the problem with the mainstream media. Do we want the drug running to get into the United States and harm our citizens? Now, there's supply and demand. You got to control the supply and you got to control the demand. You got to get these people off the drugs and you got to destroy the suppliers. It's that simple. All right? And we are in our opium wars now. Right? There were the opium wars that weakened China. Well, we're in the fentanyl wars and the other drug wars that are weakening the United States. And it's an existential threat to our existence. But you got a bunch of lawyers that are actually defending the policy of Venezuela. You have lawyers that are basically saying, well, wait a minute, this is an illegal war against Venezuela. Who cares if it's legal or not? Stop it. Stop Venezuela from conducting harm to the United States. Who cares? Is it an existential threat or not? Illegal war, not illegal war. What does it matter? It doesn't matter. You got a bunch of lawyers that really didn't design anything, make anything. They push paper, and they think that they're superior to the average person because they have a law degree. And now the reality of the situation is lawyers are lawyers because they didn't have the smarts or were afraid of blood, so they're not doctors. It's the same thing with economists. Economists, typically, they couldn't do well in physics, so they end up becoming economists. Lawyers are what's causing the country to having problems because they litigate everything, and all of a sudden they just let our borders more porous, let the illegals run rampant, our cities are in decline, but they followed the law. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I have zero respect for lawyers.
And about less than a half hour ago. Reassuring. wait, no, George, you probably don't know this. Listen, here it is. To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Okay, Ankush, he's the president of the United States. Not Venezuela. So does he have the legal authority to declare another nation's airspace?
He can just go. What Trump needs to do is go to the White House, the Oval Office, have a live broadcast, have a speech, and he basically says there's an existential threat on the United States by Venezuela and its drug cartel, and we are going to destroy it. And I don't care if it's legal, I don't care if it's illegal, it's going to be destroyed. That's what he needs to say. He needs to just say, I don't give a shit, we're going to save our country. Bunch of libtard legalese. That honestly, deep down inside, they think you're smarter, that they're smarter than you. They think because they have a law degree that they're going to tell you how it is. But yet, if you follow their policies, it's going to make things worse.
Why Truth Social?
No, he doesn't. I actually think it's a little bit worse than that. If what he is saying is true and it's not walked back, and he intends to follow through on his message there, he's saying that our country is about to launch an illegal war. Right?
So what?
We're going to call it the war on Epstein.
These are Messi's, the world's most versatile, fully waterproof shoes.
That's cool, but I need shoes I can wear rain or shine, work and play.
We're going to call it the war on Epstein.
Hey. Knocking out Venezuela is going to stop, or at least heavily curtail, the drug running into the United States. And there's an opium war that's happening. It's new. And it's to weaken the United States, just like how the opium wars weaken China. But it's with fentanyl and other drugs. And sadly, Americans are buying into it. Sadly, Americans have the demand for this stupidity. And because of their addiction and because of their issues with their families and blah, 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 they're literally making our country weaker. And you got these people that just say, it's okay. It's okay. Let's not stop it. Let's just weaken the country. Look at this clown that's in his blue suit and with his afro. Get a fucking haircut, dude. This is not the 1960s.
That the next administration, a potentially Democratic administration, would actually prosecute the people carrying out these murders?
Okay, this is a very, very interesting and important question.
Yeah.
Trump can eliminate everyone's liability if he pardons everyone out the door. Okay, right? If he pardons everyone who's involved in these strikes, he can eliminate their liability under federal law. If he does not issue a pardon, then I think a lot of people are going to be pointing to LLC guidance that supposedly supports these strikes. That's what
This is the classified memo that.
So let me get this straight. So you have the Democratic Party that's basically saying, don't do this illegal, illegal activity that Donald Trump is asking you to do. Let the drugs keep on coming in and weaken the country. And when we lose our constitutional freedoms and our governance and our prowess economically, who do we turn to? Who do we say, you were at fault? Are they going to take responsibility of inaction? No, of course not. Trump is right. You kill the enemy and hell with the consequences. If there's an enemy, you kill him. You don't ask for forgiveness. You don't ask for permission. You just kill
him. Exactly. Which, so far as I can tell, is completely baseless as a legal analytic matter. That memo might help people lower down the food chain. I don't see how it can help the people at the very top, based on the reporting that the legal advice itself has been gained by the people in the Pentagon and the Department of Defense. You cannot invoke a legal opinion in your defense if you have orchestrated the opinion to work in your favor and to reach a predetermined conclusion. So that would be like
they're missing the big point here. Venezuela and other countries in South America and even in China are weakening the United States because this is the new opium wars. Now, are we going to follow suit? If we play this out, the United States falls. Now, I'd much rather set the whole fucking world on fire than to have the United States fall. Legally or not legally. These people are such dumbasses. They don't care about the United States. They have no virtue. They don't have the essence of what it really means to be an American citizen. They're so weak. Look at this Afro kid, right? And then this individual here doesn't even look like he can even lift weights.
I mean, what is wrong with this country? Where's the virtue of standing up for your constitutional freedoms? No, let's just have an opium war. Let's just, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, and let's have Marxism and let's push for reparations. This Afro clown wants reparations. That means that he's going to tax you and give it to someone else because of their race. Right there. That's MS now.
World and the most senior military commanders. Last but not least, even if we're in that federal pardon scenario, and nobody in the U.S. can do it, I think these people in office, particularly the most senior people, Hegseth and all, are really betting a lot that there will be no effort to enforce domestic laws by the South American countries whose citizens are being killed, or international law by international bodies. Those bets may be correct over the long haul, but
what about all the deaths from the drugs that are coming into this country, clown? Look at this. Look at this. They don't say anything about the harm that they're doing to the United States. It's Orange Man is going to cause harm in South America. We gotta stand firm and just say Orange Man bad. See, they think they're so smart that they're stupid because in the end they will destroy America.
Real legal risks that these people are running.
Absolutely incredible.
God.
When you look at, because in my intro I talked about Letitia James and I talked about Comey, their things getting thrown out.
Yeah, they were thrown out because you had an improper prosecutor. That doesn't mean that they didn't do it. Now, they're innocent until proven guilty. That's the way our governing system works. But the thing is that Letitia James, the evidence seems to suggest heavily that she did mortgage fraud and tax fraud. Now, I was in a room with her speaking, and she stated to the crowd that she has values and that she wanted to have a backyard for her kids. But she didn't deny that she didn't deny the mortgage fraud or the tax fraud. The point here is this. They're getting away with illegal activity that an average citizen wouldn't get away with. But because it's under the Trump administration, Orange Man bad all the time. So everything he does is bad. So he must be going after Letitia James because of just revenge. But who actually signed those mortgage papers? Who actually signed her taxes? She did mortgage fraud. She did tax fraud. The evidence heavily suggests this. For sure she did tax fraud because she had rental income. She didn't claim it. That's tax fraud. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. These clowns. Is it legal? Just litigate it. Just litigate. You miss the main point, and then the country's dissolved. This is the problem you have. You have zero common sense around that table.
The people and entities who are being attacked. You know, there's been a retribution by the president of the United States. Never.
Wait a minute. Letitia James, before she was even an attorney general, or district attorney, I guess it's DA. So district attorney, when she was running, what did she say? I'm going to go after Trump. Well, wait a minute. How could you just go after Trump when you don't even have a case? I'm just going to go after Trump. Who was vengeful? How did this start? Letitia James started this crap. Industrial amnesia by the Afro.
seen anything like this. And I think, we knew there was a lot, but having the reporting that gives us a number that we're month 10. What is it? Month 11, month 10 of this administration, and we're at 470 different iterations of retribution against his perceived political enemies or universities or whatever.
Turkey Day Dixon was a biker compared to this. I mean, we've never seen anything like it. The list is going to grow. And basically, it's anybody who he thinks crosses him or that his minions think cross him, because they will do this to ease him. And then, oddly, there's a very much a focus on people who he thinks can't fight back. Or who thinks
now, if George Conway was so right in his analysis here. Now you have to remember he's a lawyer, just another dumbass lawyer. But if he was so right, why did his wife leave him? Conway. Why? Oh, maybe there's an issue there. Maybe there's an issue.
He's a bully. He picks targets that he thinks are most vulnerable, who are going to cave. And then sometimes there are people who he just leaves alone. But this is all designed not just to actually achieve retribution over these 470 and growing individuals. It's designed to intimidate others. And that's where it actually is the most effective, because these.
You think there wasn't intimidation by the government under the Biden administration? What about the silencing of conservatives, like mothers saying they didn't like how they were teaching their children and what they were teaching their children in grade school? What about the silencing of people like myself that were trying to warn the public about a very serious problem in 2020 and 2020? In 2020 and in 2021. There was serious censorship. Where are these people? Oh, Orange Man bad. Brain dead Biden good. See? Clowns. It's almost like, I don't even know if they believe it. I don't know if they believe the rhetoric that they're saying. They may just say, you know what? They need a job. They have to be paid by MS Now. And so they'll just be Orange Man bad because that's what the network wants. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. I'm not positive what their real belief is on this. Their real opinion. Because sometimes it seems like they're fighting logic. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. Orange Man bad. That's all they say. At what point do they say that, you know what? Having a president that's stopping the damn drugs, that's saving kids, saving adults, so they don't die from drug abuse, is a good thing. They don't say that. No, what they say is knocking out drug cartels is illegal, is an illegal warfare. What? Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit? As long as Trump gets the job done, I don't fucking care.
In case they've been thrown out, they have zero chance of ultimate success. But people don't want to tangle with that. They don't want to go through that process. They don't want to go through even an investigative process. And that is one of the ways that, authoritarians like Trump try to suppress dissent.
Wait, let's go back to the Ed Martin of it all, where he said in front of the camera that at the end of the day, we can't charge them or put them in jail. We're going to shame them. This is about the process of this, like you said.
Unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. These lawyers just drive me nuts. Please go on my store, the sad thing is, let's go off on a tangent because you know what? Today I feel like going off on tangents because it's my show and I can do whatever I want. All right. So I'm noticing this also with the Harvard community. You know, you got a lot of lawyers there, but they orange man bad syndrome. They're not using logic. And the thing is that if you're going to have groupthink, you may lead to the country off the cliff. And there's times that you need leadership to save the republic. And we're at that point in time. Now, you have to have some guardrails. Can't totally go off the rails. You don't want a Caesar. But the thing is that you follow these intelligentsia types, they are going to destroy the country. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Myotrol. Myotrol will help you to build muscle and maintain muscle. When you get older, your gene expression starts to go down because of methylation. That's part of the aging process. Take the flavonoids, polyphenols, and lignans that are in Myotrol, do resistance training, and you'll reverse that. You're going to be able to build muscle and maintain muscle. For males and females, it works great for individuals 40 years of age and older. If you're an athlete, younger or older, you will also benefit from Myotrol to gain strength. Please go to my store and get the Myotrol. This also stacks well with the Gladiator Barley because Gladiator Barley also helps to build muscle. Vitamin B complex helps to improve the health of your mitochondria, increase your ATP levels. The first 4 B vitamins helps the electron transport chain within the mitochondria to produce ATP. It will help to rev up your cellular metabolism, so your organ systems and your tissues will perform better, and it will help to protect your neurons because it has vitamin B12. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the B complex. All right, let's listen into Live Now.
Breaking news that is coming in at this hour to our newsroom. President Trump telling airlines this morning to consider the airspace above Venezuela closed. He posted this right here on Truth Social saying, quote, to all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. He adds, of course, thank you for your attention to this matter. The president's comments coming about a week after the Federal Aviation Administration, that's the FAA, warned airlines about flying over Venezuela. The FAA issuing a notice urging airlines to, quote, exercise caution due to the, quote, potentially hazardous situation in that region. Want to pop up one of the live images that we do have right here. This is a live look over the White House. Now, the FAA advisory in part read, quote, operators are advised to exercise caution when operating in the flight information region at all altitudes due to the worsening security situation and heightened military activity in or around Venezuela. It goes on to say, quote, threats could pose a potential risk to aircraft at all altitudes, including during overflight, the arrival and departure phases of flights and or airports and aircraft on the ground. Now, they also requested airlines to provide at least 72-hour advance notice to the FAA if they did plan to fly through that area. Some international airlines then canceled their flights to Venezuela following that warning. Direct flights from U.S. passenger and cargo carriers to Venezuela have been suspended since back in 2019, but Reuters does report that some airlines still fly over the country on their South American routes. I do want to pop up this video on your screen right here because all of the comments, of course, coming as we are getting different video and information here. President Trump and his administration stepping up their strikes on suspected drug cartels in and around Venezuela, saying those strikes are expected to continue. And some of this video here coming from President Trump and the Secretary of Defense and War, Pete Hegseth, releasing the video of several of these strikes. Now, several fatalities have been reported as well. A lot of information here, so we will make sure to keep you updated on Live Now from Fox.
You're not a child, you're a man. So stop wearing so many layers to go outside. To get the Bearskin Tactical Hoodie 4.0, the 10-pocket.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the peppermint, lavender, and tea tree or the citrus deodorants. These deodorants
will help to make you smell good. You use it as a daily deodorant, but it'll also help to detoxify your body. And when you do that, that's helping your immune system and your endocrine system. You can use this for males and for females. Use it every day. It's dual purpose. It's made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It's very high quality, extremely high quality. Get a couple bars for your household. Please help support the work and get the deodorants. It's dual purpose, very high quality. And the zeolite. Zeolite binds to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. You take 3 small drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water, take it every day, and it's going to bind to them and allow you to urinate those toxins and chemicals and heavy metals out in about 6 to 8 hours. Do that every day, and you're going to be improving your immune system and your endocrine system. Detoxifying your body is going to help for your body to get into homeostasis and slow down the aging process. And take Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients, has a very comprehensive compound profile here. You can read the label more closely on my website, but this is a month supply. It will help with your brain function and your musculature, improve your energy levels, and speed up your metabolism. Super important. Help with your cardiovascular health. Take it every day. You'll notice the effects of this within 72 hours. You're going to have a steady burn of energy. You're going to have more vitality. You're going to be more active. And you're going to be able to concentrate better. And you're going to get rid of that brain fog. And you'll be sleeping better. This is very powerful. And if you stack this with my overall core anti-aging protocol, you get added benefits. This is very powerful just by taking it by itself. You can also stack this with the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley. This will help to control your blood glucose levels, your A1C levels, super important. Do some resistance training, drink filtered water. The stack that you should take this with to get that core protocol, take the multivitamin and the probiotic as the foundation. The first pillar, Max 35 or cleanse to boost up the immune system. C60, strong antioxidant, is the second pillar. The third pillar, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans to boost up the immune system and help with your cardiovascular system. And Boomer Boost, rev up that energy level and your metabolism, but you get the added benefits of brain function, musculature, cardiovascular health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the Boomer Boost. It's going to slow down the aging process. When you do that, you'll be healthier. Use discount 5 and you get $5 off any order. If you spend $100 or more, you get a free gift. And you like free gifts, right? All right. Make sure you can go to the store, my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get these supplements and use them as gifts to push someone in the direction of good health. Because the healthier you are now, and you do this regularly, you'll get the compound benefits when you're older. So you don't spend as much on health care. Because if you're healthy when you're older, you don't need the doctor. You don't need the medication.
Earlier this month, the Department of War announced the beginning of Operation Southern Spear. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez breaks down what the military operation means for the region and the United States.
Operation Southern Spear is now the largest military buildup of the U.S. military in the Western Hemisphere since the Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962. In short, Operation Southern Spear is a joint military task force whose mission is to defend the homeland and to remove narco-terrorist threats from the region.
The president has made clear that America is going to secure our interests in the Western Hemisphere. And the center of that is dismantling narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, and criminal cartels from our southern border all the way on down to the tip of South America. We are going to make sure that the American people are safe and protected. from transnational organized crime, Venezuela, Iran.
To understand Operation Southern Spear, we must look at the numbers behind illegal drug trafficking into the United States. For example, it's estimated that every year some 650 metric tons of cocaine is smuggled into the United States. And another tragic number is that every year for the past 5 years, some 80,000 Americans have died due to illegal drug consumption in the United States. That's 80,000 Americans per year for the past 5 years. And to put it into context, during the war on terror, less than 10,000 Americans died over a span of 20 years during 2 wars, Iraq and Afghanistan. So 80,000 deaths per year due to illegal drug trafficking is significant and a tragic number. Now, here we have the main players of illegal drug trafficking into the United States in the region. We have Colombia, which is the world's largest cocaine producer. And then we have Venezuela. 1/3 of the drugs produced in Colombia are shipped through Venezuela to Mexico and then smuggled across the southern border. The other 2/3 of cocaine production are smuggled through the eastern Pacific of Colombia and Ecuador into Mexico and then across the southern border into the United States.
The Cartel del Soles is the cartel that runs Venezuela. And as we've seen with all of these drug trafficking vessels, these narcoterrorism vessels that are leaving Venezuela and Venezuelan waters, they are shipping massive amounts of deadly narcotics into the United States. And so all of these actions represent a direct threat to the lives and safety of the American people. And so the defense of the War Department's Operation Southern Spear is the commitment of this administration to use lethal force to stop criminal terrorist cartel from threatening American lives in Venezuela and beyond.
The U.S. government has designated the Cartel de los Soles, a cartel of the Suns, as a foreign terrorist organization. Now, the cartel takes its name due to the sun insignia that Venezuelan generals wear on their uniform. And this cartel is formed by Venezuelan top officials. We have the leader of that cartel, Nicolás Maduro Moros, who is right now the illegitimate president of Venezuela. And he has a $50 million bounty on his head due to an indictment that the Biden administration placed on Maduro for drug trafficking. We also have Vladimir Padrino Lopez, the head of the Venezuelan military, with a $15 million reward or bounty leading to his capture. And of course, also Riobal Cabello, the Minister of Interior. These are just some of the few top Venezuelan officials that lead this Cartel de los Soles.
Maduro, the U.S. designated him the leader of this war terrorist organization. Why do you want to talk to him? He's the leader.
But we can save lives. If we can do things the easy way, that's fine. And if we have to do it the hard way, that's fine too.
What's your reaction?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what the goal is. You should probably know what the goal is, but they cause a lot of problems. And they've sent millions of people into our country. They were probably the biggest abuser with Tren de Aragua and all the others that they sent in, the drug dealers, the drug lords.
The U.S. military buildup in the region, in particular the South Caribbean.
It's about time. Start kicking ass. It's about time having a president that actually gets the job done. Now, hopefully, he will do this and kill the individuals in Venezuela that's harming our American citizens. Unfortunately, he didn't go far enough in Iran and kill the Ayatollah. He's not going far enough in defending Taiwan. And he sure as hell ain't going far enough to actually tell Putin, you stop or we're going to level the cities of Russia. You know, we need a more forceful president. Now, hopefully he goes in and destroys.
He began over 2 months ago, but it was during the month of November that the USS Gerald R. Ford, the US's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, arrived in the region of operation of Southern Command. Now, this aircraft carrier holds a total of 4,500 sailors and military personnel aboard. And it also has the capacity to have over 75 aircrafts in that carrier to launch strikes. And these are including F-18s and F-35s. And of course, it's also very important to note that an aircraft carrier doesn't just travel by itself. It has 3 escorting destroyers. These are 3 destroyers that are missile-guided destroyers. Now, having an aircraft carrier in the region signals that the U.S. military wants to have the ability, the capacity to have sustained military operations, as an aircraft carrier serves as a refueling platform for aircraft that are going on missions during a sustained period of time.
A decision about what you want to do next up as well. I understand you don't want to take your hand. Is there anything you're ready to rule out at this point? Are you ruling out U.S. troops on the ground?
No, I don't rule out that. I don't rule out anything. You just have to take care of Venezuela. They dumped hundreds of thousands of people into our country from prisons. I'm not in love with the people running Venezuela. I love Venezuela. I love the people of Venezuela. But what they've done to this country.
Another important military asset that the U.S. has placed in the South Caribbean Sea is the USS Iwo Jima. This is an amphibious assault ship that has the capacity to hold over 1,000 sailors operating the ship, but it also has right now on board 2,200 Marines. And these are not normal Marines. These are Marines that are part of the Marine Expeditionary Unit. Only 3 are active in the world. 1 of them has now been deployed to the South Caribbean Sea. The USS Iwo Jima has a landing platform with the capacity of carrying over 35 aircrafts, and these are helicopters, Osprey ships, and even F-35s that can land vertically. Now, also, the USS Iwo Jima doesn't travel by itself. It has 2 other escorting ships on an amphibious readiness group, and these other 2 other ships have the capacity for landing platforms to then have the Marine Expeditionary Unit, those 2,200 Marines, land with equipment from land, air, and sea into any territory and clear the way for further military operations.
It is impressive how a movement of solidarity is rising everywhere in support of the victorious effort of the indestructible people of Venezuela in the face of these threats.
It's amazing that AI voice to translate. You know, the reality of the situation is, I hope, I pray that Trump is victorious and destroys the Venezuelan political regime and stops the drug running. It's time that we have a president that says, you know what? South America is our backyard, and we're going to clean it up.
Political, diplomatic wars, whatever they do, however they do it, wherever they do it, they will not be able to defeat Venezuela. We are invincible. Whatever they do, they have not been able to.
Really? This guy's going to end up like Gaddafi.
Never be able to defeat our homeland. Never.
The regime of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela has touted support from the likes of the Chinese Communist Party, the Russian regime of Vladimir Putin, the Iranian regime, and even the communist Cuban regime. But the U.S. has also had a series of allies step forward in the region in support for Operation Southern Spear. First of all, we have Trinidad and Tobago right here. That is 7 miles off the coast of Venezuela. Trinidad and Tobago have hosted U.S. destroyers for military exercises during this operation. We also have Panama in Central America that has signed a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. government to allow for U.S. military troops to be hosted in this nation. And also in Central America, we have El Salvador. In El Salvador, there's already an AC-130 aircraft that's a special operations airplane, and also a Poseidon-type aircraft that is a signal intelligence aircraft that are flying missions from El Salvador around the South Caribbean Sea. We also have Ecuador, and Ecuador has signed with the U.S. military and the U.S. government to allow for military troops and equipment from the United States to travel freely through its territory. And also Argentina. Argentina has signed on to the U.S. Combined Armed Forces Initiative to fight transnational crime in the region. And lastly, of course, of territory of the United States, Puerto Rico. The U.S. military has rehabilitated a military base in Puerto Rico that is now hosting over 30 F-35 fighters and B-2 bombers.
Envision a new Venezuela perched on top of the Western Hemisphere as a premier global energy hub, a symbol of independence and innovation, a new era of ingenuity in an open marketplace of ideas, catapulting the next generation of leaders across all business sectors.
From the regime of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela, the writing is on the wall. There is regional support for Operation Southern Spear. There is a legitimately elected opposition government in Venezuela waiting to take power if the narco-terrorist threat is removed. And the U.S. has mobilized all the military equipment and assets into the region to decisively and effectively remove the narco-terrorist threat and defend the homeland. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
All right. What I want to do is listen in to. I want to play. Let's listen into CNN about small businesses. Before we do that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen will help with your skin, your nails, your hair. Also, your musculature, your bone density, your joint health, and cartilage. It's dual purpose. You take this regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process. So please go to my store, get the collagen. This is great, especially if you take the vitamin C and magnesium and drink it with about 32 ounces of filtered water or 64 ounces of filtered water throughout the day, and that will improve your dermal layer of your skin. Collagen is super important. Make sure you take this every day and do some resistance training to build denser bone and musculature. Please go to my store, use discount 5. You get $5 off any order. All right, let's listen into CNN here.
At 6 a.m. on Black Friday. So be the first to snag Lowe's doorbuster deals and your choice offers before they're gone. Get more holiday for less.
November 5th, 2020.
Gifts, decorations.
You know what?
How will we afford the holidays?
I'm going to pivot to a different video. This happened 2 weeks ago. Venezuela attacks the wrong U.S. aircraft carrier. All right? This was published 2 weeks ago. But I think this is going to be interesting in the context of what's going to happen very shortly, where Venezuela is going to be completely destroyed. Watch.
Full time. A Venezuelan Navy patrol squadron left Puerto Cabello under strict radio silence. 4 boats, each armed with 12.7 millimeter heavy machine guns and Soviet-era 73 millimeter launchers. Their orders: intercept the American warship entering Bolivarian waters. The Americans didn't know it yet, but the squadron's intel was already wrong. The target wasn't a lone destroyer. It was the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, a 100,000-ton floating air base with a strike group of 6 warships. By 5:21 in the morning, radar operators aboard the Eisenhower picked up faint echoes coming from the south. Small, fast, uncoordinated, it didn't fit commercial traffic. Bridge, combat, we have 4 surface contacts, 27 miles in closing. The carrier's captain turned. Copy, let's light him up. Within seconds, the USS Gravely and the USS Mason adjusted course, forming a defensive wedge ahead of the carrier. The escort pattern tightened. The Phalanx Sea Whiz turrets rotated to standby. Every sailor on the deck knew this formation meant one thing: possible hostile approach. The Venezuelan lead boat, Naiguata 23, pushed its throttle past 40 knots.
Its captain thought they were chasing an American destroyer running solo. His radar tech didn't notice the massive radar signature behind it, the carrier itself. At 5:48 in the morning, the Venezuelan squadron broke radio silence. You are entering Bolivarian waters. Alter course immediately. No response, just static from the carrier. 3 minutes later, the boats crossed into visual range. And that is exactly when every sailor on the Naiguata 23 realized their mistake. They weren't staring at a destroyer. They were facing a U.S. aircraft carrier, backed by a fully armed strike group already locked onto their position. The Venezuelan boats didn't just stumble into any American ship. Nope. They had sailed straight toward one of the most lethal formations afloat, a U.S. Navy carrier strike group. At the center, the Dwight D. Eisenhower call sign Ike, nuclear-powered, 4.5 acres of armored deck, and carrying nearly 70 aircraft. To her crew, she's a floating city. To anyone dumb enough to challenge her, she's a storm from hell wrapped in steel. Flanking her, 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, the Gravely and the Mason, each one bristling with over 90 vertical launch cells, housing everything from Tomahawk cruise missiles to Sea Sparrow interceptors. On the outer ring, a Ticonderoga-class cruiser, Philippine Sea, running overwatch, tracking everything within 250 miles. Above them, 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters sweeping the surface, their tipping sonars pinging, and their infrared cameras scanning for fast movers. The carrier's Combat Information Center links all of it together. Radar, sonar, satellite feed, all into one picture the size of an ocean. When those Venezuelan boats appeared, every ship in the group saw them at once. The system tagged them Skunk Alpha 1 through 4. Unknown surface contacts, course north, speed 42 knots. The order went out. Maintain course, do not engage unless fired upon. It's a simple rule, one built on experience. The U.S. Navy doesn't blink first. They let you come close enough to realize just how big of a mistake you've made. And right now, 4 Venezuelan captains were about to learn that lesson the hard way. At 5:52, the radar operator aboard Gravely leaned forward in his seat. Contact accelerating, bearing steady, they're not changing course. That single line turned the entire Combat Information Center into a live wire. On the main screen, 4.
This Black Friday gift cleans your retainer at the touch of a button. No more brushing or tablets. Over 4 years ago, our team of engineers knew there had to be a quicker, easier.
On the main screen, 4 small blips crawled across the surface radar display, each now just 22 miles out. They weren't moving like smugglers. Smugglers will do everything they can to avoid detection. These boats were charging straight in, hard. The captain of the Gravely made the call. Broadcast on Maritime Emergency Channel. The radio operator keyed the mic. Unidentified Venezuelan vessels. This is United States Navy warship. You are operating in international waters. Alter course immediately. Nothing. The Venezuelan formation split. 2 boats stayed low, hugging the waves. 2 veered wide, forming a pincer pattern. That's not random navigation. That's training. Meanwhile, up on the Eisenhower's flight deck, crew chiefs scrambled to ready another MH-60R Romeo helicopter, its job to get eyes on target. Within 2 minutes, the Seahawk's rotors were slicing through the humid Caribbean air. Pilot climbed to 500 feet, sensors on. Visual contact, 4 fast patrol craft, approximately 45 feet, painted navy gray, flying Venezuelan flags, guns mounted forward. The carrier's command center cross-linked the video feed to every ship in the formation. The image was crystal clear, wakes slicing white trails toward the U.S. group. At 6:01, the Venezuelan lead boat locked onto radar return, Echo 2. Their intel sheet said that Echo 2 was a U.S. destroyer operating without carrier escort. A perfect target for a warning run. The idea was simple. Buzz close, fire a few warning bursts, film the standoff, and feed the footage straight to state media. Caracas wanted proof that their Navy could push back the Americans. But their data was 2 days old. Echo 2 wasn't alone anymore. Overnight, the carrier strike group had shifted position. The radar Echo they were chasing wasn't a destroyer. It was the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the flagship herself. From the Naiguata 23's bridge, the American silhouette rising over the horizon looked wrong. Too large, too flat, too tall. The radar cross-section filled the entire scope. Their captain hesitated, thinking it was two ships side by side. Then the reflection of aircraft elevators and tower lights confirmed it. They were staring at an aircraft carrier. By now, the U.S. strike group had gone to full alert. Gravely and Mason shifted positions to block the small craft. Choppers maintained overhead eyes, and inside the Eisenhower's Combat Direction Center, every sensor was locked on to the Venezuelan formation. The Venezuelans, still trying to complete their demonstration, fired 2 short bursts into the water, not aimed just for show. But to a U.S. carrier on high alert, muzzle flashes are no joke. Gravely's fire control radar locked on instantly. Target tracking came the call. The Venezuelan boats suddenly found themselves lit up by multiple weapon systems. Alarms screamed inside their cabins, missile lock tones they'd never heard before. In less than a minute, they realized what had gone wrong. They hadn't scared an American warship. They'd threatened a nuclear-powered carrier strike group with live weapons on standby. The Venezuelan commander shouted over the radio, voice shaking, "Cease approach, disengage!" But it was already too late for calm words. The American response had already begun to unfold. 6:03. The carrier's Combat Direction Center went red. Not flashing lights, not sirens, just a calm professional voice. Condition 1, weapons release authorized for self-defense. On the destroyer Gravely, sailors manned the 5-inch gun. The Phalanx Sea Whiz turret rotated, tracking the fast boats automatically. Its barrel spinning at 4,500 rounds per minute, ready to shred anything that crossed the line. A single flick of a switch and the Caribbean would light up like the 4th of July. Above, the Seahawk helicopter dropped to 200 feet, holding a position over the approaching patrols. Its sensor operator could see men aboard the Naiguata 23, bandanas, helmets, fingers tight on their triggers. Then came a tone in the Seahawk's headset. Fire control radar from the Venezuelan boat had locked onto the Gravely. That was the final trigger. "Bridge, we are painted," the pilot said. "Copy, maintain eyes, do not engage unless fired upon." Inside the Eisenhower, the tactical action officer ran through the rules of engagement checklist. U.S. policy was crystal clear. Do not start a fight, but finish it fast if it does start. A tense minute passed.
For more than 20 years, Finest Call has worked diligently to create a line of premium cocktail mixers that bartenders
A tense minute passed. Every gunner, every radar operator, every sailor just waited. The Venezuelan boats slowed, just barely, mind you. Then one boat accelerated again, skimming the surface at 45 knots straight toward the Gravely's bow. "Standby countermeasures," came the call. Chaff pods armed, laser designators warmed up. One mistake, one burst too close, and it would all end in seconds. The Gravely's captain kept his hand steady. He knew the math. 4 small boats against 2 destroyers and a carrier? That's not a fight, that's a suicide note. At 6:06, the Seahawk reported, "One vessel has broken formation, turning away." Then another. Then the radar paints began fading, one by one. The standoff was breaking, slowly, but not peacefully. The American guns stayed hot. The radios stayed cold. Because everyone on deck knew just because they were turning now doesn't mean it's over. 6:07. One of the Venezuelan boats, hull number 23, swung wide, looping back toward the carrier's southern flank. Whether it was confusion, pride, or poor communications, nobody knew. But to the Americans watching on radar, it looked like an attack run. Contact closing fast, bearing 210. Every ship in the strike group snapped into defensive geometry. The Mason adjusted course, moving between the carrier and the approaching contact. The Sea Ram launcher rotated, missile hatches opening. One wrong move, and this would turn into a very short war. From the air, the Seahawk pilot called it out. It was turning inside Mason's wake, distance 1.5 nautical miles. That's just seconds away in naval time. Inside the Mason's Combat Information Center, the tactical watch officer's voice was calm but firm. If that boat crosses 1,000 yards, engage with a warning burst. Copy, 1,000-yard line. As the Venezuelan craft raced closer, Mason fired 2 green flares, standard U.S. Navy sign for turn away now. No response. Then the Venezuelan boat's gunner made a mistake that almost triggered everything. He racked the charging handle on his deck gun. Just one sound, metal against metal, picked up by the Seahawk's camera microphone. Muzzle movement confirmed, the pilot called out. Target within 900 yards. Gravely's captain raised his hand. Hold fire just a second longer. At 6:08, the Venezuelan boat suddenly veered hard to port, engines whining as it peeled away, throwing up white spray. The other boats followed, formation broken. Then word came over comms. Contacts retreating, all units stand down weapons, maintain tracking. It had been a minute from a gunfight neither side wanted, but both were seconds away from starting. By 7 o'clock, the sea was empty again. No Venezuelan boats in sight, no engine echoes on sonar. The strike group held course, speed 20 knots, heading north. But the fight wasn't over. It was just moving to another battlefield, the political one. 2 hours later, Venezuelan state media released a short, grainy video. It showed their patrol boats racing across open water, overlaid with the narration claiming they had repelled an American incursion. In Washington, the Pentagon wasted no time. They published satellite images and full radar logs proving that the U.S. group had been operating inside international waters more than 80 miles from Venezuelan territory. The Navy called it reckless brinkmanship. Caracas called it sovereign defense. Both sides were technically right and completely unwilling to back down. Diplomats scrambled behind the scenes to cool things off. No shots fired, no injuries, just a near miss. But inside the fleet, sailors knew the truth. The difference between a near miss and a war can be as small as a misunderstood radio call or one nervous finger on a trigger. By the next day, the Eisenhower strike group quietly shifted farther north. The Venezuelan boats returned to port under radio silence. Both nations moved on publicly. But everyone at sea knew this wouldn't be the last close call in these waters. People think warships can see everything.
Are you wearing 7 layers and still freezing your man nipples? You need the new 340 GSM military-grade bearskin.
People think warships can see everything. In reality, the ocean still hides mistakes better than any battlefield on Earth. At night or in low light. And complex electromagnetic noise bouncing off. Your target suddenly isn't what you think it is. That's what happened here. Venezuelan patrol crews were using shore-fed radar data, not live ship sensors. Their coordinates came from a static grid that didn't account for the carrier group's overnight repositioning. Patrol into a full-blown confrontation. And when governments mix politics with poor situational awareness, things get dangerous fast. Naval officers call it threat mirroring, each side interpreting the other's move as aggression, even when it's just self-defense. The truth? Modern navies rely on human judgment just as much as technology. And one misread radar echo or one misheard transmission can spiral into international crisis before anyone even says the word fire. The official reports later called it a routine encounter. The sailors who were there called it something else, closest they come to firing live rounds outside of wartime. Looking back, it's hard not to wonder how thin that line really is. One flare, one wrong radar lock, one commander losing his nerve. That's all it takes to turn a tense standoff into headlines nobody wants to write. At sea, there is no replay button. Once you commit, you live with the outcome. So here's the question for you. You're on the bridge. The alarms are screaming. There's 4 fast boats tearing straight towards your ship at 40 knots. Do you hold fire and risk getting hit, or do you squeeze the trigger first? Drop your answer below. I want to see how you would call that one. Thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, share it with a friend who loves naval stories, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a debrief whenever the next close call hits the ocean. And hey, if you want to go a step further and support the channel directly, please join the fleet. You'll get loyalty badges, priority replies, and you'll help us bring more true maritime stories to the surface.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60. Take it on an empty stomach, preferably. Take a teaspoon a day, every day. This is going to soak up free radicals and slow down the aging process. It's 1,000 times more potent than vitamin C. You can get it in extra virgin olive oil, MCT coconut oil, or avocado oil. You can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. It's going to soak up free radicals, help the health of your mitochondria. You'll have more energy. You'll have less stress in the cell. Your tissues and your organ systems will perform better. You will have a better immune system and endocrine system, also brain function. By soaking up free radicals at the vascular level, you're going to reduce plaque formation. And for your brain, it's going to soak up those free radicals and reduce stress at the neuron level, produce more ATP. Your neurons will produce more neurotransmitters, and over time, you'll get better neuroplasticity to link your different neurons. You'll think faster and have better memory over time. C60 will slow down the aging process. Stack this with the vitamins, the probiotics, Max 35 or the cleanse, the turmeric, the ashwagandha, the lignans, and the boomer boost. And when you do that, you have a very comprehensive protocol to slowing down the aging process. Please go to my store, take C60 every day. You can get it in a 2-ounce, a 4-ounce, or an 8-ounce configuration. And C60 will also improve the health of your basal layer so you have better skin. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the C60.
I think it's a good idea for regime change to happen in Venezuela because the Venezuelan people have already spoken on this issue. It would be good for the region, it would be good for Venezuelans, and there's very little popular support to this criminal organization operating at the top.
Hello and welcome to G0 World. I'm Ian Bremmer, and today I'm asking a surreal question. Is the United States about to invade Venezuela? It increasingly looks that way. President Trump has sent mixed signals about his intentions. He's deployed America's most advanced U.S. aircraft carrier to the region. And he's receiving near daily briefings with military options ranging from strikes on government facilities to special operations raids. He has said Venezuelan President Maduro's days are numbered, but also that Maduro wants to talk. Maduro, for his part, has called for peace, going so far as to butcher the lines of a famous John Lennon song, "Acapella."
Be my land of people.
Joining me to try to make sense of all this, except for that last part, a man who has served two very different administrations, as U.S. ambassador to Venezuela under both President Trump and President Biden, James Stewart. But first, a word from the folks who help us keep the lights on.
Funding for G0 World is provided by our lead sponsor, Prologis, and by Cox, a family of businesses.
Bombers fly sorties to intimidate the Latin American strongman accused by Washington of trafficking drugs and rigging elections. There's talk of U.S. troops going in to remove him. I'm not talking about Venezuela today. I'm talking about Panama in 1989.
Fellow citizens, last night I ordered U.S. military forces to Panama. No president takes such action lightly.
For decades, Panamanian President Manuel Noriega was a paid CIA asset, and he was a useful intermediary for covert U.S. operations across Latin America. But by the late 1980s, he had become a liability, deeply involved in cocaine trafficking, money laundering, and after annulling an election he clearly lost.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the drops. You can get them in honey and lemon, in blueberry, and also in cherry flavor. Get a few bags for your household. And be prepared for the winter season. Make sure you go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. This is the end of the broadcast. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.